37, engaged to a nun. At Ailing in Herbert A, there lived a young man named Chan Yu, the son of a graduate. He was a good scholar and a handsome fellow, and had made a reputation for himself even before he arrived at manhood. When quite a boy, a physiognomist had predicted that he would marry a Taoist nun. But his parents regarded it only as a joke, and made several attempts to get him a different kind of wife. Their efforts, however, had not hitherto proved successful, the difficulty being to find a suitable match. Now his maternal grandmother lived at Hong Kong, and on one occasion, when young Chan was paying her a visit, he heard someone say that of the 4 yuns at Huangshu, the youngest had no peer. This remark referred to some very nice-looking nuns who lived in a temple a few miles from his grandmother's house. And accordingly, Chan secretly set off to see them, and knocking at the door, was very cordially received by the 4 ladies, who were persons of considerable refinement. The youngest was a girl of incomparable beauty, and Chan could not keep his eyes off her, until at last she put her hand up to her face and looked the other way. Her companions now going out of the room to get tea for their visitor. Chan availed himself of the opportunity to ask the young lady's name, to which she replied that she was called Yunshi, and that her surname was Shin. "How extraordinary," cried Chan. "And mine is Pian." This made her blush very much, and she bent her head down and made no answer, by and by rising up and going away. The tea then came in, accompanied by some nice fruit, and the nuns began telling him their names. One was Pai Yun Shan, and 30-odd years of age. Another was Shang Yun Min, just 20. And the third was Liang Yuntung, 24 or 5 years old, but the junior in point of religious standing. Yunshi did not reappear, and at length Chan grew anxious to see her again and asked where she was. Miss Pai told him her sister was afraid of strangers, and Chan then got up and took his leave in spite of their efforts to detain him. "If you want to see Yunshi, you had better come again tomorrow," said Miss Pai. And Chan, who went home thinking of nothing but Yunshi, did return to the temple on the following day. All the nuns were there except Yunshi, but he hardly liked to begin by inquiring after her. And then they pressed him to stay and take dinner with them, accepting no excuses. Miss Pai herself setting food and chopsticks before him and urging him to eat. When he asked where Yunshi was, they said she would come directly. But evening gradually drew on, and Chan rose to go home. Thereupon they all entreated him to stay, promising that if he did so, they would make Yunshi come in. Chan then agreed to remain. The lamps were lighted, and wine was freely served round, until at last he said he was so tipsy he couldn't take any more. "3 bumpers more," cried Miss Pai, "and then we will send for Yunshi." So Chan drank off his 3 cups, whereupon Miss Liang said he must also drink 3 with her, which he did, turning his wine cup down on the table and declaring that he would have no more. "The gentleman won't condescend to drink with us," said Miss Pai to Miss Liang, "so you had better call in Yunshi and tell the fair Aloysia that her Abelard is awaiting her." In a few moments, Miss Liang came back and told Chan that Yunshi would not appear, upon which he went off in a huff, without saying a word to either of them, and for several days did not go near the place again. He could not, however, forget Yunshi, and was always hanging about on the watch, until one afternoon he observed Miss Pai go out, at which he was delighted, for he wasn't much afraid of Miss Liang, and at once ran up to the temple and knocked at the door. Young Min answered his knock, and from her he discovered that Miss Liang had also gone out on business. He then asked for Yunshi, and Young Min led him into another courtyard where she called out, "Yunshi, here's a visitor." At this, the door of the room was immediately slammed, and Young Min laughed and told Chan she had locked herself in. Chan was on the point of saying something when Young Min moved away and a voice was heard from the other side of the window. "They all declare I'm setting my cap at you, sir. And if you come here again, I cannot answer for my safety. I do not wish to remain a nun, and if I could only meet with a gentleman like you, Mr. Peon, I would be a handmaid to him all the days of my life." Chan offered his hand and heart to the young lady on the spot, but she reminded him that her education for the priesthood had not been accomplished without expense. "And if you truly love me," added she, "bring 20 ounces of silver wherewith to purchase my freedom. I will wait for you 3 years with the utmost fidelity." Chan assented to this, and was about to tell her who he really was, when Yunmin returned and they all went out together, Chan now bidding them farewell and going back to his grandmother's. After this, he always had Yunxi in his thoughts, and wanted very much to get another interview with her and be near her once again. But at this juncture he heard that his father was dangerously ill, and promptly set off on his way home, traveling day and night. His father died, and his mother, who then ruled the household, was such a severe person that he dared not tell her what was nearest to his heart. Meanwhile, he scraped together all the money he could, and refused all proposals of marriage on the score of being in mourning for his father. His mother, however, insisted on his taking a wife, and he then told her that when he was with his grandmother at Wonkong, an arrangement had been made that he was to marry a Miss Shin, to which he himself was quite ready to accede. And that now, although his father's death had stopped all communications on the subject, he could hardly do better than pay a visit to his grandmother and see how matters stood, promising that if the affair was not actually settled, he would obey his mother's commands. His mother consented to this, and off he started with the money he had saved. But when he reached Wonkong and went off to the temple, he found the place desolate and no longer what it had been. Entering in, he saw only one old priestess employed in cooking her food, and on making inquiries of her, she told him that the abbess had died in the previous year and that the 4 nuns had gone away in different directions. According to her, Yunxi was living in the northern quarter of the city, and thither he proceeded forthwith. But after asking for her at all the temples in the neighborhood, he could get no news of her and returned sorrowfully home, pretending to his mother that his uncle had said Mr. Shen had gone away, and that, as soon as he came back, they would send a servant to let him know. Some months after these events, Chan's mother went on a visit to her own home, and mentioned this story in conversation with her old mother, who, to her astonishment, knew nothing at all about it, but suggested that Chan and his uncle must have concocted the thing together. Luckily, however, for Chan, his uncle was away at that time, and they had no means of getting at the real truth. Meanwhile, Chan's mother went away to the Lily Hill to fulfill a vow she had made, and remained all night at an inn at the foot of the hill. That evening, the landlord knocked at her door and ushered in a young priestess to share the room. The girl said her name was Yunxi, and when she heard that Chan's mother lived at Ailing, she went and sat by her side and poured out to her a long tale of tribulation, finishing up by saying that she had a cousin named Pian at Ailing, and begging Chan's mother to send someone to tell him where she would be found. "Every day I suffer," added she, "and each day seems like a year. Tell him to come quickly, or I may be gone." Chan's mother inquired what his other name might be, but she said she did not know, to which the old lady replied that it was of no consequence, as being a graduate, it would be easy to find him out. Early in the morning, Chan's mother bade the girl farewell, the latter again begging her not to forget. And when she reached home, she told Chan what had occurred. Chan threw himself on his knees and told his mother that he was the payan to whom the young lady alluded. And after hearing how the engagement had come about, his mother was exceedingly angry and said, "Undutiful boy, how will you face your relations with a nun for a wife?" Chan hung his head and made no reply. But shortly afterwards, when he went up for his examination, he presented himself at the address given by Yunshi only. However, to find that the young lady had gone away a fortnight before. He then returned home and fell into a bad state of health when his grandmother died and his mother set off to assist at her funeral. On her way back, she missed the right road and reached the house of some people named Qing, who turned out to be cousins of hers. They invited her in, and there she saw a young girl of about 18 sitting in the parlor, and as great a beauty as she had ever set eyes on. Now, as she was always thinking of making a good match for her son and curing him of his settled melancholy, she asked who the young lady might be, and they told her that her name was Wang, that she was a connection of their own, and that her father and mother being dead, she was staying temporarily with them. Chan's mother inquired the name of Miss Wang's betrothed, but they said she was not engaged. And then, taking her hand, she entered into conversation and was very much charmed with her. Passing the night there, Chan's mother took her cousin into her confidence, and the latter agreed that it would be a capital match. But, added she, this young lady is somewhat ambitious, or she would hardly have remained single so long. We must think about it. Meanwhile, Chan's mother and Miss Wang got on so extremely well together that they were already on the terms of mother and daughter, and Miss Wang was invited to accompany her home. This invitation she readily accepted, and next day they went back. Chan's mother, who wished to see her son free from his present trouble, bidding one of the servants tell him that she had brought home a nice wife for him. Chan did not believe this, but on peeping through the window, beheld a young lady much prettier even than Yunshi herself. He now began to reflect that 3 years agreed upon had already expired, that Yunshi had gone no one knew whither, and had probably by this time found another husband. So he had no difficulty in entertaining the thought of marrying this young lady, and soon regained his health. His mother then caused the young people to meet and be introduced to one another, saying to Miss Wang when her son had left the room, "Did you guess why I invited you to come home with me?" "I did," replied the young lady, "but I don't think you guessed what was my object in coming. Some years ago I was betrothed to a Mr. Pian of Eiling. I have heard nothing of him for a long time. If he has found another wife, I will be your daughter-in-law. If not, I will ever regard you as my own mother, and endeavor to repay you for your kindness to me." "As there is an actual engagement," replied Chan's mother, "I will say no more. But when I was at the Lily Hill, there was a Taoist nun inquiring after this Mr. Pian, and now you again, though, as a matter of fact, there is no Mr. Pian in Eiling at all." "What?" cried Miss Wang. "Are you that lady I met?" "I am the person who inquired for Mr. Pian." "If that is so," replied Chan's mother with a smile, "then your Mr. Pian is not far off. Where is he?" said she, and then Chan's mother bade a maidservant lead her out to her son and ask him. "Is your name Yunshi?" said Chan, in great astonishment. And when the young lady asked him how he knew it, he told her the whole story of his pretending to be a Mr. Pian. But when Yunshi found out to whom she was talking, she was abashed, and went back and told his mother, who inquired how she came to have 2 names. "My real name is Wang," replied the young lady, "but the old abbess, being very fond of me, made me take her own name." Chan's mother was overjoyed at all this, and an auspicious day was immediately fixed for the celebration of their marriage.
Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more excellent content.